The plane touched down on a cold December evening. The airport was a blur of tinsel and forced cheer as I collected my bag. This Christmas was supposed to be different. For the first time in years, I had something solid to show for my work. A bank account with enough to finally fix the tooth that had been a source of constant throbbing pain. 18 months of overtime, of saying no to friends, of silent sacrifice. Yet, as the taxi neared my parents' neighbourhood, that old familiar tug of hope pulled at me. Maybe this year the welcome would feel genuine. The house looked postcard perfect from the outside. Strands of lights traced the roof. But as I paid the driver and dragged my suitcase up the familiar path, the silence was overwhelming. No music, no overlapping voices, just the crunch of frost under my boots. I pushed the front door open. "Hello, I'm here." The living room was a museum diorama of Christmas. The tree, perfectly decorated. A fire, reduced to embers in the hearth. Everything was in its place, and yet the place felt utterly abandoned. Then a sound, not of celebration but of solitude. The clear, lonely clink of cutlery on a ceramic plate. It came from the kitchen. My stomach tightened. I walked slowly, each step echoing in the unnatural quiet. And there, in the dim light of the open refrigerator, sat my grandmother. At the kitchen table, wrapped in a faded robe, methodically eating from a plate of what looked like yesterday's, or maybe the day before's, dinner. "Nana?" She looked up, and in her eyes I saw a deep, weary sadness that had nothing to do with age. "Oh, darling, you made it." Her voice was thin. She offered a smile that didn't reach her eyes, and with a hand that trembled slightly, she slid a single folded piece of paper across the table towards me. No envelope, just a torn edge from a spiral notebook. I picked it up, the paper cold. My mother's handwriting, usually so neat, was a frantic scrawl. "We had to seize a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We used the $8,500 you loaned us to book a Caribbean family cruise. We're sailing tomorrow, back on the 5th. Your grandmother has everything she needs. Please look after her. Try to understand. Love, Mom and Dad." Try to understand. The numbers on the page blurred. $8,500. That money was a physical thing to me. The ghost of every skipped lunch. The echo of every late-night shift. The future relief from pain I carried in my jaw every single day. It was my exit ticket from a problem, and they had converted it into their entry ticket to a buffet line under a tropical sun. "They packed summer clothes," Grandma said softly, her gaze fixed on her plate. "They were giddy, like children. They left this morning." She took a small, deliberate bite of cold green bean. "I believe they thought you'd be proud of them, for being spontaneous, for putting family first." A sound escaped me, not a laugh, but a sharp exhale of disbelief. Family first. The phrase was a punchline in a joke only they understood. The mental ledger flipped open instantly. The loan for my brother's failed business venture, the gift for my sister's destination wedding that was really a demand, the constant smaller drains that were always framed as my privilege to contribute. I was the family's financial foundation. Praised only when bearing weight, I sank into the chair opposite her. The house, usually vibrating with their contentious energy, felt hollowed out. A shell. Grandma's wrinkled hand reached across the table and covered mine. Her skin was cool, papery. "This stops now," she said, and her voice held a resonance, a strength that seemed to rise from her very bones. Not with tears, with teeth. I looked at her. Really looked. Behind the weariness was a ferocious, gleaming clarity. My own swirling panic began to crystallize around that look. This wasn't just about my stolen savings anymore. They had looked at this frail, loyal woman and seen an inconvenience to be managed with a note and some leftovers. That transformed my hurt into something else entirely, a cold, clear purpose. "What's the first step?" I asked, my voice low. She gave my hand a final pat. "We finish this terrible supper, and then we begin building our case." Our case began in the quiet hours after midnight. While Grandma slept, I sat in the dark living room, the glow of my laptop the only light. The family cruise was laughably easy to track. In their excitement, my sister had posted publicly a panoramic shot of my parents, my brother Mark and my sister Chloe on the glittering deck of the Seafarer's Paradise, glasses raised. The caption was a knife twist, sailing away from all the drama and negativity, real family time. No regrets, or dear blessed. The anger was no longer a hot rush, it was a deep, settling cold, like ice forming at the core of me. I saved the image, I took screenshots. The next morning, Grandma was already at the dining table. Before her wasn't her usual knitting, but a weathered cardboard filing box. "I've been a trusting old fool," she said, without preamble. "Your mother took over my bills years ago, said the online passwords confused me, said it was easier." She lifted the lid. Inside were stacks of bank statements, pension reports, and tax documents. I think we should see what easier really meant. We became archaeologists of our own family's betrayal. Hour by hour, a devastating pattern was unearthed. Small monthly transfers from her pension fund to an account in my mother's name, labelled care expenses. ATM withdrawals from locations near my father's favourite sports bar. Always on nights he'd claim he was working late. Zelle payments to Chloe for school supplies or car repairs that matched to the day, purchases at high-end boutiques or vacation deposits. We photographed every document. I created spreadsheets linking dates, amounts, and their flimsy excuses. With Grandma's shaky signature on a letter of authorization, I accessed her online banking portal. The digital trail was even more damning, a 5-year history of systematic, quiet drainage. The cruise was merely the arrogant final flourish. The most chilling piece of evidence was recovered from the digital grave. In Grandma's email archive, I found a deleted thread between my mother and Chloe. They were discussing how to get the $8,500 from me. My mother wrote, "Just say it's for the roof repair. He can't say no to that. He's too sentimental about this house." Chloe replied, "Yeah, his guilt is our credit line." Reading those words, the last vestige of familial warmth inside me froze and shattered. Sentiment was a weakness they exploited. Guilt was a currency they minted. I closed the laptop. I was no longer their son or brother. I was now their accountant and their auditor. Their return was an invasion of noise. The slamming of SUV doors, loud laughter, the dragging of luggage up the porch steps. They spilled into the house on a wave of imported humidity and entitlement. "Ugh, I need a salad that isn't 90% mayonnaise," Chloe announced, flinging her sun hat onto a hook. "Is the heat even on?" "It's freezing in here," my mother complained, not looking at us as she passed through to the thermostat. My father offered a grunt in my direction. Mark headed straight for the kitchen, yelling, "Who finished the good coffee?" I let the chaos swirl. Let them re-establish their dominion over the space. I waited until they were all congregated in the living room, comparing tans and complaining about airport lines. "We need to talk," I said, my voice cutting through the chatter. "All of us, right now," a collective sigh of irritation. "Can it wait?" Mark groaned, not looking up from his phone. "I have to unpack." "No," I said, the word flat and final. "It cannot wait." I placed my laptop on the coffee table and opened it. The screen faced them. It displayed a simple title slide, a review of shared finances. "I'd like to present some findings," I began, my tone neutral, professional. Click. A graph appeared, charting the steady decline of Grandma's pension balance against a timeline of family trips to Mexico, Florida, and now the Caribbean. Click. A detailed list of every loan I'd ever given, with a new column added, verified actual use. Mark's rent assistance was a new gaming system. Chloe's tuition crisis was a week at a resort spa. The room's atmosphere shifted from annoyed to apprehensive. My mother's face paled. "What is this? This is a gross invasion of privacy." "It's a forensic audit," I corrected calmly. "Authorized by the account holder, your mother, who grew tired of not understanding where her money was going." I let the word forensic hang in the air. "This is family. We support each other," my father blustered, his neck turning red. "You support yourselves," I stated. Click. The next slide was a scan of a legal pad, headed Potential Claims. The phrases were stark: elder financial exploitation, fraudulent misrepresentation, civil theft. "I've retained a lawyer," I said. "Her name is Elena Vance. She has a perfect record in probate and elder law court." I paused, letting the threat solidify. "She has this entire file, and its appendices." "Appendices," Chloe whispered. I played the audio recording. It was my brother's wife, Laura, her voice choked with shame. "Mark told me not to worry about the cruise money. He said, he owes us. After all the grief he's caused this family, it's the least he can do. He said, "You'd never have the guts to fight." Mark launched himself off the couch. "You sick. You recorded my wife in our own home." "She came to me, Mark," I said, my gaze steady. "She came to my door in tears because her conscience couldn't carry your lies anymore. This is her signed statement." I let the silence become a tangible weight. Then I navigated to my final screen. An email fully drafted. The to field was a devastating roster: the State Department of Aging, the District Attorney's Financial Crimes Unit, the investigative desk at the local news station, and Eleanor Vance, attorney at law. "This email," I said slowly, "contains every scanned document, every screenshot, every financial timeline, and this recorded testimony." The subject line reads, "Detailed dossier of multi-year financial abuse." I looked at each of their faces. My mother's horrified shame, my father's stunned rage, Mark's venomous glare, Chloe's tearful panic. "You have a decision. Within 96 hours, you collectively wire transfer the full sum of $15,200 to the account I will provide. That represents the return of my $8,500 plus $6,700 for the calculated misappropriation from Grandma's pension, with a minimal interest accrual. You will send me confirmation. Alternatively, I press send on this email, and you can spend the coming year explaining your financial strategies to lawyers, reporters, and likely your employers." "You vicious little ingrate," my mother screamed, her composure shattered. "After all we've done for you." "What you've done to me," I said quietly. "And to her." Grandma stood then. She had been so still, a monument in the corner. Now she stepped forward. "I loved you," she said, her voice trembling not with weakness but with a potent, long-suppressed fury. "I loved you when you were unlovable. I sacrificed for you without a ledger, and you saw my love as a line of credit. You saw his decency as a defect to be profited from." She pointed a bony finger at the door. "You have 96 hours. Get out. Do not come back until you have decided to be human beings, or until you are ready to be defendants." They filed out not as a unit, but as individuals defeated, their vacation glow extinguished by the cold light of exposure. The following days were a masterclass in the stages of familial collapse. Day 1. Absolute silence. The bluff, they believed, was mine. Day 2. The emotional offensive. Text please from Chloe. "We're sisters. This will kill Mom." Voicemails from my father alternating between wounded pride, "How could you do this to your name?" and vague threats, "You'll regret crossing me." I compiled them all into a folder for Elena. Day 3 morning. Photographic proof, texted to me by Elena, of certified letters being delivered to their homes. Day 3 afternoon. The first breach in the wall. Chloe, terrified the scandal would reach her fiancé's wealthy traditional family, electronically transferred $3,500. The note read, "My share. Please. No more." Day 4. My mother came alone. She looked decades older. She handed me an envelope, a cashier's check for $8,500. "There, your blood money. I hope you can sleep at night, knowing you've destroyed your family for a few dollars." "The family was destroyed the first time you stole from her," I said, taking the envelope. "I'm just the one finally reading the will." I closed the door softly. Day 5. Mark, the final holdout, capitulated. His wife had left, the story had reached his boss at the car dealership, and a formal notice of wage garnishment had frozen his accounts. He arrived with an envelope of cash, $3,200, and threw it at my feet. "We're nothing to each other now. You're a stranger." "The feeling," I said, picking up the money, "is profoundly mutual." The ledger was settled, $15,200. We paid Eleanor her fee. I scheduled my long-awaited dental surgery. For Grandma, we hired a daily home health aide and moved the remainder into a newly created ironclad trust in her sole benefit. The peace that settled over her features was a more beautiful reward than any financial restitution. We did not remain in that museum of betrayal. We found a small sunlit apartment. It held no history. Its silence was our own, filled with choice, not absence. Life, in time, moved on. Ripples from our confrontation continued to spread. My mother's attempts to rally extended family against me faltered. When a cousin who had been through similar privately reached out to me in support, my father's boasting among his friends about the cruise turned to muttered excuses about family troubles. Chloe's perfect social media life developed a conspicuous, permanent gap where our family used to be. Mark drifted from job to job, the garnishment a ghost that haunted every paycheck. They authored a new narrative for outsiders, of course. The tale of the greedy son who blackmailed his parents, the grandmother with dementia turned against her own children. But their story had no power here in our quiet apartment. We lived in the truth. One night, sharing a simple meal, Grandma looked at me. "Do you ever feel less? For having done it? For being the one who broke the unbreakable?" I considered her question. "I feel lighter," I said finally. For years, I carried the weight of their expectations, their disappointments, their financial emergencies. I put it down. What I feel now isn't less. It's the space where that weight used to be. It's room to breathe. She nodded, a slow, deep understanding in her eyes. "They took your kindness for a weakness. They mistook my silence for consent. We taught them a different vocabulary. And we had. The quiet we cultivated now was not an emptiness left by their departure. It was a fullness we built ourselves. It was the sound of pages turning in a book she enjoyed, the hum of my computer on a job that valued my work, the easy silence between two people who no longer have to brace for the next request, the next guilt trip, the next withdrawal. They took my savings and my trust, but in reclaiming it, I gained something far more valuable, my autonomy, my peace, and the unshakable certainty that I could and would protect the one person who had always protected me with pure, unconditional love. This is what I learned. Sometimes, the most profound way to honor family is to courageously redefine its borders. And sometimes, the strongest, most loving word in any language is a peaceful, resolute, and final no. If my story of drawing a line in the sand and finding solid ground on the other side connected with you, please like this video and subscribe this channel.